Hello future tech leaders, I'm Sindhuja. Based on my own experience, I know that learning the right skills can shape our future. What if I say learning was as thrilled as the tech world itself? There we go. A cloud foundation, that's exactly what you will experience. From day one, you will be immersed in the interactive sessions and expert-led courses that covers most of the widely used technologies in the zone of data science to cloud computing, which brings more light to the life of a techie. I'm so excited to help you and unlock the true potential of a technology. Well, then why to wait? Let's see what it unfolds.
So far on the enable features, we have discussed company accounting, tax, employees analytics, suite, cloud, everything. So items and inventory and CRM, these are the two tabs which are left out. So let's go through them quickly. So under the items and inventory. Now when I talk about items, this is the material which is used within the company. It could be a material, it could be a non-inventory item as we spoke about earlier. It could be just a service. So all these items can be created under lists, accounting and then items. We will see how these items are created later on. So under the items and inventory, these are the enable features that we have. So there is something called as drop ship items and special order items. So what exactly these mean? Usually the procurement cycle are the fulfillment cycle works in this way. Customer places an order and then we send out the material to the customer based on what he has ordered. Now there are certain dropship items. These are called the dropship items. They work in such a way that whenever a customer places an order, we place an order with the vendor. And the vendor directly ships the material to the customer. Just to be a little clear, what I say is there is a customer A who places a sales order with us. However, we do not have the item with us because this item could be very expensive. So usually what happens is if an item is like $500,000 or more than that and we do not want to keep them in the warehouse because we don't want to spend amount. So as and when the customer places an order, we then place an order with the vendor. So instead of we do not receive this material. We don't receive this. What happens is vendor directly ships the material to the client. This is what the dropship is. You understood the difference between that. Usually, in a normal scenario, what happens? We place an order with the vendor. Vendor sends the material into our warehouse. And once the customer places an order, we ship out the material to the customer. But in a peculiar dropship case, the orders are directly shipped from the vendor to the customer. Any questions on this? So this is a dropship order. Likewise, what is a special order? Now, special order also works exactly the same way. However, we receive the material and then we ship to the customer. We will not have the stock. We will not have the stock with us because this could be an expensive material. So that is the reason we will not have the stock within the warehouse. What we do is when the sales order is generated, whenever a sales order is generated, it automatically generates a purchase order for us. And that purchase order has to be processed. That means we have to get the material into the warehouse, and once we have the material, only then the sales order can be processed. So this is a time-consuming option wherein the customer has to wait for the material to be arriving in our warehouse, and only then they can ship out the material. Clear so? What is a matrix item? A matrix item is nothing but 1 second. So matrix. Now, there might be one type of a material. Let us say in case of clothing industry, we have shirts and we have pants. But there are different sizes of shirts. Like this. So this is your matrix item. Same item with different sizes and different colors. It could be XL blue and XL red. And then you have your L blue, L red. So likewise, you can define your items in this way. So the items which have different colors and different sizes come under the matrix items. Multiple vendors. Whenever you want to define the price of each item for a different vendor, you can enable the multiple vendors. Yesterday, if you remember, we were talking about the multiple customers, wherein you can define different prices for each customer. So that is what is your multiple vendors which will actually do so. And then gift certificates. You can generate certain gift certificates and it will allow the customers to purchase reading those gift certificates. Barcoding and item labels. So whenever you have the material in the warehouse, you can actually generate your barcoding and item labels, and then you can actually maintain them in your warehouse by doing the barcoding. Merchandise hierarchy. For your items, you can define certain hierarchy. Organize your items in a hierarchical structure so that whenever you're reporting on the product sales or on any inventory, this will help you. So that is what is your merchandise hierarchy. Advanced item location configuration. This is an advanced topic which you don't need information about. Now coming to the inventory part. What do you think is an inventory? Any item which can be stored on the warehouse is your inventory. As simple as that. So do you want to enable this or not? So certain customers, certain businesses do not have the inventory items at all. They might just be dealing with services. They might be dealing with non-inventory items. So for that you don't have to enable the inventory. And then multi-location inventory. So each item, let us say you're talking about mobile phones. So these mobile phones can be maintained at multiple locations on the inventory, and you can have the inventory count of each location. Usually this is enabled for just in case. If the customer has got multiple locations like this, when you go to the setup, we have multiple locations here. When you scroll down, you've got the locations here. So if you go into these locations, you will see that there are more than one location set up for the instance. So, which means you have to enable the multi-location inventory so that you can track it. Assembly item. Assembly items is your manufacturing items. You may buy the raw material from outside, or you might have them in-house, the raw material like. Take, for instance, a car manufacturing. You can have your steering, you'll have your wheels, you have your seats, you have your gears, accelerators and everything. And then it is manufactured within the industry, so that becomes your assembly items. Any item which is assembled is called your assembly item. It could be a bike. It could be a mobile phone as well, which got its speakers, mouthpieces. You've got the screen, so on and so forth. So all the raw material is assembled and made as an assembly item. So that is what is your assembly item. Do you want to enable this or not? So when you enable your assembly items, if you go into your items, whenever you're trying to create your items, it will give you an option for creating the assembly items like this. You see this, if you disable the assembly items, this option will not be there. And then advanced bill of material. So this is called BOM. Whenever you're talking about the assembly items, you should also be talking about the B. OM. BO. And is nothing but the material which is used inside the building of an item. Now let's say you ship building industry. You will have your azimuth thrusters, you have your rudders, you have your gears, you have a whole lot of bill of material in order for you to build this big ship. So advanced bill of material. You have to create this bill of material within the system as well. And then finally, when you're assembling this item, when you're creating the assembly item, you can attach this bill of material into that assembly item. So by saying that, what I can say is, to build a ship, you might require a dozen azimuth thrusters. You might have your, 20 rudders, and then you can have all the gear system, all the shafts. Different kinds of material is required, and with the quantity, so 12 of them, 20 of the other material, 30 the other ones, and all these things assembled together will become your item. So that is what is your advanced bill of material concept. What is a work order? A work order is just like the way you call purchase order for procurement, sales order for the sales. Work order is for the assembly items, billing of your assembly items. You can create a work order, you can build the items, and you can unbuild the items as well through a work order. So we'll see what those work order is all about. And then serialized inventory. Serialized inventory in the sense you can assign serial number to your items. Whenever you're creating the items, you can create the serialized inventory saying that 10,001 is one inventory, 10,002 is another one, and 1,003 is another one. So likewise, you build a serialized inventory, and the serialized inventory is used in first out basis. Whatever comes in first, you can actually use that material in the lot tracking. That is what is your lot tracking all about. So you can get your item in lots. Let us say lot tracking is actually used in case of food industries, food and beverages. So how that works is, this week I might get lot 1 and next week I might get lot 2. So first of all, I have to use up the lot 1 because there is an expiry date for the food and beverages. So these expiry dates are mentioned on the lots, and then a lot tracking is enabled so that based on the expiry date, we actually use the items that we get first and then preserve the items that we get a little later. That's what is your lot tracking all about. You can enable that, and this feature gets. See, you are enabling assembly items, serialized inventory lot tracking. So when you go to your new item, you see this assembly item lot numbered serialized. So these are the things that you have enabled. And then you have enabled the matrix items as well. Creation of matrix items and then matrix item assistant. So this is, since you have enabled these features, these are available. If you are not enabled, all these will be blank. The customers may or may not want the matrix item to be enabled. I mean, they might not have items with different sizes and colors. In that case, they do not go for the matrix items. And then you've got the bin management. What is a bin? In every location, you have multiple bins. There are 1,000 places within the warehouse where you store your items. So all those 1,000 places can be called your bins: bin A, bin B, bin C, bin D, or bin 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You can number them. So if you have been to IKEA, you will have a lot of bins over there. 1 and 6, 10, 67, 10, 68. You go to those bins and you pick up the material. That is what is your bin management. Do you want to enable that or not? So once you enable the bin management, every time you're receiving the material, you have to specify which bin is this material going into on the item receipt. When you are taking it, even when you are fulfilling it, from which bin are you taking it out of the warehouse is what you have to mention as part of the inventory. Any questions on this? Great. So coming to the advanced bin number inventory management, so you can enable this. So the serial lot inventory items can also be a part of the bin. Inventory status. So you can actually define the inventory status of your material, which is good, bad, or expired, something like that. You can define those inventory statuses if you enable this. So this is called warehouse management. Now, apart from NetSuite, there is something called as warehouse management as well. A WMS, that is called the WMS Warehouse Management System. There is a different team that works on the warehouse management. So they enable these features that you see on the screen now: advanced inventory management, warehouse management. They enable these. Even the bin numbers is actually managed by the WMS team. So we are NetSuite Functional Consultants. So there is a different team which handles the warehouse management, and there is a different team which handles the HR system as well. As I mentioned earlier on the employees section, there is an HR team which actually handles that as well. So that is a different team which takes care of these things. Now, what is a landed cost? A landed cost is if you are buying something from outside. Let us say you buy an iPhone from America. So by the time it reaches Hyderabad, there is one cost. Maybe your friend is bringing it for certain cost, but from the warehouse to your house, there could be certain expense. Maybe you go to the airport and pick it up and you have your fuel expenses. So that is what is your landed cost all about. Any business which actually buys a material from outside. Let that be from a dockyard, from a ship dockyard to the warehouse, or from the airport to the warehouse, or from the bus stand to the warehouse, or anything. The local charges for bringing in the material is called your landed cost. So once you enable this landed cost, you will be able to capture the landed cost while putting in your item receipts. Whenever you're creating a purchase order, when you do an item receipt, then there is a landed cost selected along with that. You can actually specify what is your landed cost along with that. So what you see down there, the demand planning, the material requirements planning, the supply planning, all these are a part of the manufacturing processes. So depending on the demand that you have, historical demand, we say, for the system considers the past 1 year demand. What have you procured in the last 1 year? Let us say we have procured 10,000 quantity of certain items. So that is a high demand item. And based on that, the procurement is planned. So how much have you sold out of that 10,000 that you have in the warehouse, and how much do we have to procure? The system gives you a fair picture as to what exactly is the demand for this item and how much do you have to procure in the future so that you can meet the demand and the supply. That is what your demand planning and supply planning. Material requirements planning, MRP. This is called MRP. That's called DP, demand planning. So all these come as part of the manufacturing processes. And then you have the outsourced manufacturing work in process, and outsourced manufacturing. What exactly is an outsourced manufacturing? You might get an order for a material. A customer wants to buy something from you. However, you don't manufacture that within your warehouse. You give it out to a vendor for manufacturing that item for you. Let us say there is an order for a tower crane which is very huge, and you do not have the capacity to build that within your warehouse. However, there is a vendor who can actually build that and give it to you. So that's what is your outsourced manufacturing all about. Once you enable this, what happens is, whenever there is a sale sort of created, you create a work order, the raw material goes out of your warehouse. The raw material goes out of your warehouse to the vendor. The vendor assembles the parts, and then the actual item is sent to the customer. That is what is your outsourced manufacturing. You might get confused with the special orders that we dropship orders and special orders that we spoke about earlier. Now, dropship orders is just the purchase and sale. The manufacturing process is not included. So what I meant to say was that item is not manufactured. It's just a purchased item and sold item. However, for the outsourced manufacturing, there is an item, there is an assembly item. I have to be specific, saying that it's an assembly item which has to be assembled, and it doesn't get assembled within my warehouse. Somebody else has to do it for me. That is what is your outsourced manufacturing. And then centralized purchasing and billing. This is also an advanced concept, but then I'll just give you a brief introduction as to what this is. What is centralized purchasing? The word itself means that you can purchase the inventory from a single location. So usually what happens is, whenever you place an order from a subsidiary or from a particular location, it reaches to that location only. However, in a centralized purchasing and billing, what happens is you can have one centralized location for purchasing. Like any material, you can actually centralize and keep it in one location and then send it across to the other locations. And the billing also can happen from different locations. So that is what is your centralized purchasing. Any questions so far? Great. Inventory count is when you procure your material. Whenever it is in the location, you can have a certain count of the material that I have 50 of this item, 100 quantity of so. And so item, 150 quantity of the other item. So this is a special account which is there within NetSuite. However, every now and then, probably once in 6 months, once in a year, they do a manual count of these items. So just to ensure that whatever the system count is there, it matches the manual count. Just in case if it is not matching, let us say nuts and bolts. In the nuts and bolts section, which are very small items, there is a very good chance that the number might not match. In that case, they just put in adjustment order to match that inventory, which is negligible. I mean, if you have 1 kg list of nuts and bolts, probably you might lose like what? 300 rupees. So that is adjusted based on the inventory count, which is done within the system. Great. So coming to the customer relationship management tab. So there is a Salesforce automation in place when we are talking about the customer relationship management. What is this automation about? Whenever a person or an entity or any other business legal entity who wants to do business with you, they would actually call you, or they will send an email, or they will go to your website and place a query as to what is this item about, what is the cost, what is the durability, what is the maintainability, what is the scalability. So all these things they put in as a query. Now, whenever they do that, this particular entity, whoever is putting the query or whoever is sending you an email, they become a lead within the NetSuite system. So just remember this terminology. Guys, a lead is a first stage of a customer. So a lead then turns into a prospect, and a prospect is then converted to a customer. Now lead, in the sense he is just at the inquiry stage that I want to purchase and so item. What is the rate? So he becomes your lead. Now, when you contact that person and when you speak with them, they might show a little interest saying that if there is blue color, then I want to purchase it. In that case, you can convert him into a prospect stage, which is 50% of the customer. And then once you place sales order, this prospect becomes your customer. So just remember these things. I will show all these things in detail when we are actually doing transactions. The first stage is lead. The next stage is prospect. And then the final stage is your customer. So this is the customer stages, different stages of a customer. Now, when does it become your lead? At the inquiry stage. And when does it become your prospect? When you put in an opportunity, there is something called as opportunity. Just before a sales order, you put in an opportunity. So these are called the transactions, the opportunity. And then when you put in a sales order within the system, the prospect will become your customer directly. So this is the Salesforce automation that you're seeing on the screen now. What you're seeing here is custom Salesforce automation. What happens is whenever you put in a lead, whenever you enter or just an email, I'll show you how the lead gets generated within the system. So a lead gets generated and then it turns into a prospect once you create an opportunity from the lead. And then that opportunity can be converted to a sales order. Once it is converted to a sales order, the prospect becomes your customer directly. Just remember this. I will show it to you in practical when we are dealing with it. And then customer relationship management. You can enable the customer relationship management, customer support and service. So what is this? Customer support is, there is something called as service. So when you create your cases, you can create your cases saying that there is a customer who wants to know about the product delivery. There is a customer who's unhappy about the quality of the product. So all these can be created as cases and issues, and these can be assigned to your support representatives. Initially in the demo session, if you remember, I spoke about the support representatives, sales representatives, purchase representatives. There are different people within the organization. So the support reps will actually work on these cases, on the support cases for the customer support and service that you have here. And then marketing automation. There is something called as automation on the marketing side. We will see that when we go into the transactions. This is the marketing automation, entire marketing part. How do you create your categories? The audiences, verticals, families, all the email addresses, everything has to be mentioned over here for the marketing. So this is what I was talking about. You can enable the opportunities and you have to enable this lead conversion part. Whenever you enable the lead conversion, track leads and convert them into your prospects, customers, contacts, opportunities and tasks. This is what happens as part of the Salesforce automation over there. And then you have forecasting. You can manage your sales forecast. You can load the forecast amounts for the management, and all these things can be done as part of the advanced forecasting that you have here. So if you see all these have different subheadings, again you know basic features. These are the basic features. And these are the features that you have on the sales. And these are the features that you have on the support and marketing, so on and so forth for the partners. So every aspect of it, let it be marketing or let it be support or any other thing, you have your own enable and disable features for you. So since I have enabled the issue management, that is why I have these cases issues here. If I don't enable the issues, this will not be available. Only the cases will be there. And there is an automated case escalation as well. So when people who are working in the support industry, I'm pretty sure they will resonate with this automated case escalation part. If you have a case in the ticketing tool for more than 2 hours and nobody has picked up that, then it has to be alerted to the manager. So that option also is available. You can create a case escalation based on any criteria. It could be more than 2 hours, it could be more than 4 hours, or it could be a day without an update. So such rules can be created and such. After creating such rules, you can actually assign them to the managers. There would be an alert which will be sent out to the manager saying that the case has not been worked upon for a long time. Coming to the marketing forms. There are certain online forms which you can create from NetSuite. This is called marketing automation form. There is an online customer form. So, in this form, what you can do is you can create your own form with the fields of your choice. Let's say first name, last name, email address, phone number address, zip code, city you can specify. And of course, what is the issue? The subject line. So all these, usually they are done as part of the technical team. However, on NetSuite, there are so many things that even the functional consultants can do through the UI from the graphical interface itself. You don't have to go into the backend to do all these things. So I will show you. So we have enabled the online forms so that is the reason they are available here. If it is not enabled, then you will not be able to see this online customer forms. Any questions on this? All, I take that as a note. You can enable the sales campaigns. And those sales campaigns can be put on the manufacturing part. You can do that. So with this we are done with the enabled features. Mostly if I have missed out on certain things on the enabled features, do not worry about them. If I skipped It means that they are not so useful in a normal scenario. So we're done with the company information enabled features, and then let's go to the rename record transactions, which I have shown to you already. So any entity or any record that you have on NetSuite, you can rename that to your own convenience. Instead of a customer, you can call a client. Instead of a vendor, you can call, somebody who sells. And then subsidy, or instead of subsidy, you can call them legal entities. Departments are always departments. Of course, instead of locations, you can call warehouses, so you can specify them. And whenever you do that throughout NetSuite, the terminology gets changed. If you remember, there were certain things that I have come here and I changed it. These locations, they have named it something else. So I came here and I renamed them for our convenience. And only the administrator would have access to this. Not everybody will have access to the rename record transactions. The administrator or the purchase manager or sales manager, only at the level of these people will have these access. No one else will have access to this. See assembly build. On the work order, if you're building an assembly, it's called an assembly build. So that is what is mentioned over here. You can actually change this to a work order as well, just in case. If you want it to be called as a work order, then you can do this. But the abbreviations should not be changed. These abbreviations are used in some scripting work. Whenever you build some scripts on these transactions, the abbreviations are used. So it's highly recommended not to change the abbreviations, though you have access to change it. The customers should not be changing the abbreviations. Any questions on this? And then let us go into the auto-generated numbers. Now, this is an important concept. What is exactly an auto-generated number? Whenever you create a customer or whenever you create a project or an employee, you want to have the number created against it. So here, in this case, it's just the number which is showing number 2. So when you create the next customer within the system, it gives you a number as 3. However, you can actually assign certain prefixes to this. You can say CUs as a customer and then you can assign a suffix as well. So the suffix could be anything that you, of your choice, that you can put in, maybe something like that. So what happens here is that, and you can also define the minimum digits that is supposed to be there within this. So let us remove the suffix. And then minimum digits, we are saying it as 8. So what happens is when you specify like this, and when you're creating your customer for the first time, then it generates CUs 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, 8. This is how you get the number. So this is what is your setup automated generated numbers. Whenever you want to create certain record, we will set up something and then I'll show it to you how exactly this is getting created. The number gets created for this customer. Likewise, you can say that it is a PRJ. For foreign employee, you can say that this is EMP. And for sub-partners, you can say something else. So you can define certain things, saying that this has to be my suffix. And whenever you do that, automatically the system would pick up the number of digits from here, and then it picks up the current number, and then it does it. Now, what is an allow override option here? Allow override. What this does is it gives if you enable this and save it, it gives the users to override this option. So whenever I create a customer, it creates with CU0003. But I can have an access and say that, I do not want to have the CUs. I just want the 003 to be there. So you are allowing the override option for the users to do that, which the administrators usually don't give. The allow override option is not given to the users. They do not want the users to change anything, any number of their choice. So these are the entities, prefixes and suffixes that you see here. Likewise, you have the document numbers. When I refer to the document number, it is your transactions. You have your assembly bills, you have your purchase orders, you have your sales orders. All these come as part of your transactions, and you can define what is the prefix, what is the suffix for your purchase order number. Initially, what gets generated, for assembly build, I can say AB. I want to start with a B. Now, the reason why you specify these suffixes is when you take a look at the document numbers later on in the reporting, it will be very clear what you are referring to. Now, if I don't specify the prefix here, I will have an assembly build with number 1. I can have a purchase order with 1. I'll have a sales order with 1 transaction. Did the transaction ID number, which gets confusing. So, taking a look at the transaction numbers, I want to understand what sort of a transition this is, what sort of a transaction we're talking about. Unbilled bin put away. So something like this blanket purchase orders, we say BPO. For normal purchase orders, it could be just PO. This has been transfers. For blanket purchase orders, you can say it like this. So once you do that, whenever these transactions are done, whenever I create a blanket purchase order, it gets created with BP001, BP002. So by taking a look at the transaction number, I can identify immediately what sort of a transaction we are referring to. Any questions on this? This is something very helpful to create a unique number for each. Correct. That's absolutely. For each transaction, you can create a unique number so that people won't get confused with just the document numbers directly. So in case of journal entries, you can say that they come with GE. So you can say you want to type it with GE. Journal entry opportunity, OPP. And for payments, you can say payments, something like that. And there is an advanced concept even within this. What is that? There is something called as use subsidiary. If you select this use subsidiary option, the other option gets disabled. You see this now. Uncheck this. If you select use location, the subsidiary gets disabled. The reason behind that is when you select use subsidiary and when you select a prefix, you go to the subsidiary. Subsidiary is nothing but your legal entity. So you will go to your subsidiaries. And on the subsidiary level, if you can open each subsidiary, let us say Amazon Inc. I edit this subsidiary and there is something called as document number prefix. You see this feature. There is a document number prefix. So for Amazon Inc. I say I. And I can say this. Then for another subsidiary, I can go into another subsidiary which is Amazon A. For this, I say that the document numbers will be A, and I save this. So what happens when you do that? When you are giving a document number prefix on the subsidiary, and then when you have your prefixes here. So this is how it works. If I'm creating a transaction against the AI subsidiary Amazon Inc., then it gets AI and then it picks up AB and then it gives me the document number. So by this next time when I create it for a subsidiary A, it becomes A, B's others in one. So likewise, I can differentiate directly based on my subsidiaries as well. So if I take a look at this document number, all of a sudden I can say that this is an AI subsidiary and the transaction is AB, which is assembly build, and the number is 1. And then I take a look at the second one. This is AA, which is Amazon, a subsidiary. AB is the transaction. Likewise, I can create it for PO also. So you can use this subsidiary option, but you have to specify your document number over there. Now, when you use your location instead of subsidiary, I can say I'm using the location. And then you go to your company, scroll down to your locations. Instead of the subsidiaries, what I'm saying is I want to rename my transactions based on the location. So what do? You go into your locations and under the document number prefix on the location, you see there is FP100. So this particular transaction, if I'm doing it against this location, then it has to generate as instead of AI, I would get FP's order, AB's all in one. And then maybe there's another location which names Amazon Warehouse, AU 100, purchase order Zalan 1. So this is how the system generates the document numbers. Any questions on this? I mean, I explained it very elaborately, but if you still have any questions, I can explain that once again. No, it is crystal clear. So what is this update initial number? As an administrator, what happens is if I click on this update initial number, this gets highlighted. Now let us say that my AB transactions are till 10,000 now. But I want to reset it. The next number. I do not want to start from 1000. I want to start it from 2000. So you can actually specify, you can update the initial number and it starts hitting it from 2000. It doesn't pick up M1001 over there, but it starts registering from 2001 onwards. That is what your initial number update does. So if you give a suffix like work order, in this case it will generate F P01A, B01 and 1000 and then it puts the BU over the end. So it is up to the business to decide what is the suffix and what is the prefix that they want to maintain for each transaction within NetSuite, or do they just want to leave it to NetSuite standard? It's up to them. So you have to show the screens to the customer saying that your administrators can come here and then define what is the initial number for so and so. What is the initial suffix for opportunity or a prefix for opportunity and so on and so forth. So all these things can be informed to them. Any questions on that? All good. Thank you. So, likewise, this is the document numbers, this is the entities, and here comes the customer relationship management, which is support case. For the support case, what is the prefix? Support case. You can actually specify for an issue. You can specify that it is an issue, and for the schedules also, you can define what all are your prefixes. What is your use? Subsidiary option. What is your use location option? all these things can be explained to them in this way. That's what your set of auto-generated numbers actually does. Let's go to the next topic. State problems. As countries, we have already seen what needs to be done. And this is the general preference. If you remember, while we were setting up the user preferences at the Set Preferences page, I told you that there is something called as general preferences. So this Set Preferences page is for the users to change their UI the way they want to look at it. And this general preferences is the company-wide preference which is set up by the administrators. So all these features, or what I suggest, is we may not be able to go through each and every column or each and every field that we have over here in the general preferences. However, I suggest that you go into these pages and see what each one of this actually does. You see this number of rows and list segments, maximum entries and drop-downs. We were actually seeing that when you're searching here, how many number of transactions would come in. And then when is it that you want to go to the next page? All these things can be specified over here. You have the time format, long date format for the company. You can specify date format. And after specifying these things, if you want the users not to change at the UI, then this is what you do. You remove the allow override option. You're not allowing anybody to change it at the instance as well. So if the administrator removes these allow override option, then the users will not be able to make changes to the number format, date format or CSV format or maximum number of entries in our drop-down long date format screen font. All these things can be disabled by the administrator straight away. They won't give access to the user, so that when you disable this, I've already shown you, you go to the Set Preferences. This will be disabled here. The phone number format is disabled for me. I'll not be able to make any changes. Long date format is disabled. I cannot make changes. Time format is not. I can change it. That is what your administrators would actually do. Any questions on this? There are so many options here. So second, general preferences. I think we will spend some time on this page today because we just have another 10 minutes to go. So I will discuss all these things in detail and then we'll jump on to the accounting preferences from tomorrow onwards. So first day of the week. What is the first day of the week that you can specify whether it's going to be a Monday or a Sunday, or in certain cases it could be a Friday. So you can specify what is the first day of the week and then add primary contact to the bill to address. So you can have your contact added on the bill to address option there. So you can pre-populate your contact addresses. You can show your employees as contacts. When you do this, there are employees that you create here. And the employees, so these employees will be shown as the contacts as well. Show the display name with the item codes. Whenever you're creating an item, do you want to display the name along with the item code is what you have here. What is your password policy? You know whether that could be a strong one or medium or weak. Not recommended is what is specified here. You can say you can set up medium. And when you do that, you know the minimum password length. You can specify what is the number of characters that you want to give in a password. And how many days do you want this to be expired within? Usually they expire these in 30 days. Not 30 days, maybe I think 180 days. Maybe they put it. And then user registration link, expiration in hours. So you know whenever you create your new users, within how many hours do you want that expiration link to be expired? So idle session timeout in minutes. How many minutes do you want to have the idle time when you are leaving the system like this after 180 minutes? We are saying that it has to get timed out and not before that. Those things are specified, and these are all company-wide preferences, guys. Whatever you see here now is defined at the company-wide preference, and you can allow your free-form states and address. So these things can be specified and then company logo folder. So any company logo that you want to specify on your NetSuite, you can pull that image onto the file cabinet and then specify that over here. What is the Customer Center login page? As I told you, you will give the NetSuite access to vendors to your customers as well, just in case if you want to. Then, in that case, what could be the customer login page whenever they want to do it? So all these things can be specified. And coming to the landing page, you can specify what is the landing page that you want to whenever you log into the NetSuite. Which page do you want the users to be on? Is what landing page is? I think that's what it is. Old. Select a tab created by a custom suite deployment to be the first page displayed when users log into the NetSuite account. And then you can also see that in set preferences as well. That is what he's saying. If you go to the set preferences, you have the landing page option on set preferences as well. I think it comes under the appearance, or I don't remember exactly. Maybe under transactions landing page. Landing page. It's kind of a general. Somewhere it is we can actually typing. We can search it like this, just like the way you would search the landing page after login. You can specify that here as well at a user level also. Let's close this. And whenever you're creating a customer or a vendor or a partner, you have two options. One is an individual and one is a company name. Usually we don't select the individual names because if you are creating a customer, then obviously it's going to be a company. Likewise, if you're creating a vendor, that would be a company as well. So lead type can be an individual saying that initially whoever has requested certain information with us. That would be our lead. So that can be an individual. However, for the vendors, for the companies, by default we select them as companies. And there is an option whenever you're creating your customer, I'll show you. You go to relationships, customers and click on new. When you do this, you have an option to select by default. It shows that it is a company because we have selected it as a company over here. However, you can select the individual and then create a name also, but when you select the company, it gives you the company name. When you're selecting the individual, it will give you the Miss and Mrs. Just the individual names, and the company name comes a little later on. Likewise for the vendor also, it is the same thing. Whenever you want to create a vendor, it will be a vendor by default, company by default. So these are the some of the options. Do you want to hide the attachment folders? Do you want to hide file cabinet hierarchical info? Email employee and approvals. So you can select these options that you have over here as company-wide preferences for you. Show individuals as contacts. Show project in the new user interface. So this is one of the important things. Whenever you're creating your subsidiary structure. So I can say that my parent company is at the top and I have 4 companies under each other and I created the subsidiary structure. However, a couple of months later, the customer wants to change the hierarchical structure of the subsidiary. So in that case, they can actually say that the date format, you can specify the date as to what is the last date for them to modify the subsidiary structure. But then when you do that, the consequences of implementing modification are outside the scope of any support made available to your organization by Oracle. We say that whatever you want to make changes, you have to check the financial structure. You have to check the transactions that you've done on those subsidiaries. And then you can actually change the hierarchical structure over there. So, likewise, if you scroll down, you've got your languages. You can add the language over here and then you can specify what is the preferred language for users. And then you have your centers. Custom preferences can be enabled as well. So this is related to the tax, by the way. So let's not get into that part. So overriding preferences, we've already spoken about it. So we're done till the general preferences today. We will take up the accounting preferences. And finally, do not forget to like, share and subscribe to our channel.